In the midst of Africa's economic stagnation, Botswana shines brightly, boasting an incredible turnaround that defies expectations. It is the fastest growing economy ever, with a 45-fold increase in economic output in just 5 decades. What led to the incredible turnaround of Botswana after gaining independence from Britain in 1966? Join us on a tour to Botswana to discover the enigmatic tale of how this land transformed into one of the continent's wealthiest nations. Botswana, a dazzling gem within sub-Saharan Africa's rugged terrain, blossoms with incredible growth that remains a mystery. Africa's sub-Saharan region is by far the poorest on the planet. The slave trade is a stain on its history. European powers violently divided and colonized it. Most of the nations were ruled by strongman dictators who not only upheld but also expanded colonial exploitation regimes once they ultimately attained independence. This paved the way for a region marked by political instability, corruption, and poverty. As a result, there have been 30 civil wars, numerous significant military confrontations, and 7 genocides in the past 50 years alone. The sub-Saharan region is home to 9 of the 10 poorest nations on Earth, as would be expected given the region's appalling economic growth rates. The continent, with abundant natural resources, witnesses its majority suffering from human rights violations, hunger, and economic stagnation. However, despite this, Botswana stands tall as an oasis of success, proving that every cloud has a silver lining. This is the Kalahari Desert, which covers and dominates the majority of the little-known nation of Botswana and maintains the earliest known human use of fire. This sub-Saharan landlocked country would go on to have the fastest-growing GDP ever. In the last half-century, Botswana's economic output has experienced a meteoric rise, expanding over 45 times. Botswana resembles its neighbors almost exactly, which is why in 1965 it was the 7th poorest country in the world. How is it even possible that Botswana, one of the few developing nations on the continent, achieved a middle-income status? Throughout the years, Botswana has preserved a democratic system with integrity, rivaling that of Europe. It pulled the vast majority of its citizens out of miserable poverty and prioritized investments in the country's president and its people, utilizing proceeds from its natural resources. Moreover, Botswana's commitment to upholding international peace stands strong. When Cecil Rhodes became the Cape Colony's prime minister in 1889, he used his enormous money and political influence to extend the British Empire into Rhodesia, which makes up modern-day Zambia and Zimbabwe. With control over the British South Africa Company, Rhodes turned his attention to Botswana. How did the Sawana chief's journey to England and Cecil Rhodes' actions shape Botswana's path to becoming a British colony with a unique self-government structure? 3 of the 8 African chiefs of the Sawana tribes traveled to the southern coast of England on September 6, 1895. They saw the dark clouds of terrible repercussions and extreme exploitation hanging over Rhodesia like a sword of Damocles. Their bold mission was to protect their precious land, seeking incorporation under direct crown control. They aimed to break free from Rhodes' iron grip, much like birds spreading their wings to soar into the skies of liberation. Cecil Rhodes launched an armed attack on the Transvaal Boer Republic against the objections of the English government. Meanwhile, the Sawana chiefs conducted a campaign across England and gained support. Botswana formally became a British colony as their dispute with Rhodes intensified and popular support increased. The Sawana leaders consented to British monitoring and the building of a railway from the Cape Colony into interior Africa. Despite these concessions, they held the reins of power, ruling their people with autonomy. Significant colonial exploitation was avoided thanks to their distinctive self-government structure. The Sawana chiefs protected their country from further colonial exploitation. The Sawana leaders ruled by the motto, "The king is king by the grace of the people," which signified that they ruled in accordance with the needs and desires of the general populace. Assembly meetings were essential because they gave people a place to air their complaints, resolve conflicts, and discuss new taxes and regulations. Participation was encouraged regardless of social standing, and chiefs' decisions were often subject to public overruling. Botswana found itself ranked among the poorest countries in the world despite not having experienced extensive colonial exploitation. There were just 22 people who had ever earned a university degree, and there were only 12 kilometers of paved roads. Only 14% of the area is suitable for cultivation, with the majority being arid desert. Transport costs were exorbitant due to the lack of navigable rivers and ocean access. And to make matters worse, it was surrounded on nearly all sides by nations that were actively hostile toward independent African countries ruled by blacks. On paper, Botswana was the perfect option for a poor nation. Yet, how did Botswana become the world's fastest growing economy and achieve the highest per capita income among sub-Saharan Africa? It all began with the swift rise of fair and democratic governance, laying the foundation for Botswana's success. The first building block was the tradition of chiefs being responsible for and tied to the aspirations of the people. The second crucial element was the lack of serious European intervention, leaving Botswana to grow like a wildflower untouched by external influences. The third key factor was that the elites were also on board. By 1965, the chiefs and a small group of affluent farmers controlled practically the entire cattle farming sector of Botswana's economy. As a result, strong and reliable property rights were established, a key cornerstone in any successful modern economy. These acted as the foundation for the possibility of post-colonial success. But in the end, having a superb first president was pure luck. Seretse Khama, the son of a chief who received his education in Europe, devoted his life to constructing a stable and democratic Botswana. Before moving further, take a moment to admire this wonderful couple, whose love story defied not just relatives, but the entire world. Isn't it quite strange to see the UK and South Africa meddling in a love story? At the pinnacle of it all, Seretse Khama and Ruth Williams' marriage sparked an extraordinary political and diplomatic storm. Following independence, Seretse Khama could have easily grabbed authority to establish himself as a dictator, as many other African leaders did. Instead, he used a number of policies to steer Botswana toward economic and social prosperity. The transformation included a gradual shifting of official power away from the chiefs and toward the state. This change diminished the significance of tribal affiliation, like leaves gently falling from a tree. This helped to unify a community that was formerly quite heterogeneous by only allowing the teaching of Setswana and English in schools. The Tswana tribal institutions were also quite welcoming, allowing people of different races and foreigners to participate. All of these things made it possible for Botswana to largely avoid the severe ethnic, tribal, and cultural conflicts that have dogged Africa for centuries. The democratic systems in Botswana were solid and stable very soon after the country's independence. A pivotal moment occurred with the discovery of diamonds within Seretse Khama's tribe's territory. With a heart of gold, Seretse Khama made the profound moral choice of vesting all subsoil mineral rights in the state, sacrificing his own tribe's interests. Consequently, diamond mining became a state undertaking, with revenues channeled towards state building and political centralization. This strategic decision laid the groundwork for the nation's remarkable economic growth and prosperity. The fact that Botswana is home to the second largest and best quality diamond deposit in the world will eventually come to light. With a population of under 2.4 million, Botswana holds a treasure trove of resources. The diamond wealth became a golden ticket to political stability, making power moves like playing with fire because the status quo was already quite lucrative. For this reason, it is correct to call Botswana's development a miracle. In a surprise to the world, Botswana was able to use its resource revenues for the benefit of its citizens while maintaining the status of the least corrupt nation in Africa. Botswana is not quite out of the woods though, and despite all of its splendor, it conceals some darker elements. Although it seems like Botswana has an endless supply of diamonds, for now, all good things must come to an end. Even the brightest stars eventually fade. Massive wealth concentrated in one industry naturally accumulates at the top of society. The majority of people in Botswana do live better than the average sub-Saharan person, yet a significant portion of the population still lives in poverty. Studies on inequality have actually ranked Botswana near the top of the list, despite the fact that it is not perfect. This is mostly due to the fact that income growth has largely been enjoyed by those in the mining or government sectors only. Botswana is a major success by the standards of its region. It has astounded the world with its tremendous growth, institutional stability, and fantastic management of mineral wealth. Rome wasn't built in a day, and the road to sustainable economic growth requires continued efforts, and there's still a great deal of social progress to be made. What role do you think institutions, history, and luck played in defining the economy of Botswana? Comment below.